So we want to make this as efficient as possible, because if we're going to have multiple forms, we don't want to have all of these on the code. We want to create a specific set of forms that we can modify with the time, and we can also use them and call them anytime we need it. So the easier way to do that one is to create a function. If you have forgot or you have never seen how to create a function on on Python, the way we do it is by creating the def, which means definition. Let's call it a combo box form, or it can be single combo box form. And at the beginning of that one, we can set up the arguments. So because we're going to use the same arguments, we can have here the list, or the combo box list, 2 dots, and we want to add all of this to the selection. Perhaps we can also want to change the title, so we can call it title. I'm gonna copy this one from here. So it's a title. Python will understand which is the variables we're using from that one. From A in ULEF, we want to use the save list, the combo box list, to be added. And at the end, we want to have a return of combo selected item. So that means that it will pick the element and it will retrieve it back as a function. So let me just change this one. Functions need to go on the top of it, because that way it knows that they need to be read. And for changing this one, it's gonna be easier if we don't call it each time, but to have a variable. So let's say selection, which is gonna be called a single combo box form with the values is it called ULEF, comma, level selector. So that way the function is calling the form, is picking the values, adding the combo box, and then reading all those to be retrieved here back to the result. If we run it, it's doing something like this. It works exactly the same way, and it's bringing back, it's combo is not defined because we want here to have the selection, which is the variable we're looking for. So let's say again, level 1, that's the variable. We run it, we have level 2, that's the variable, and it changes. So we're programmatically making that one as a function. Our next step to this one, so it can become bigger and bigger and much more controlled as ever before. Remember, each time you're creating a function, test it so you can know that it's running with any troubles, and as you will expect to run. Once we have that, we need to get Visual Studio Code if we want to edit code as separate. So we can go for Visual Studio Code. It says code editing, refine it, and you can download it for Windows. In that case, it will look for the version of Python that you're using it, and you will have something like this. Basically, what this one is doing, it's creating environment so you can run your Python scripts. It's gonna help you to make them easier and better. So let's start by doing a single file. I have the same folder. So it's gonna be called create new, call it 01 forms. I think didn't. Let me go for a new file. That's it. Select the language. It's gonna be a Python file, and we're gonna save it as forms. So it's called Python, it has already the symbol and has everything on it. So it's gonna become easier if we just call this part cut it from the code so it becomes smaller. And then on Python, call it as a single function. The only thing we need to remember is that references need to be called as well from that. So let me call them from here. And we're missing the control reference. Where is it? Yeah, there we go, the control reference. System is not required. File save. We will need to add the import. Let's call it system.path.append. Call it as a raw text. And we will need to call it from where our file is. So my location, it's local on a folder for this course with the name that it's called from 01 forms. In that case, we need to have like this. It's actually called forms, so let's just leave it like that. Forms import hash. So we just need to save it here. File save all. We already have our form running from here, and if we run it, same result will be popping out. Even though we don't have the form here, we're calling it from a file. So we're having two functions running. I mean, it's the function we created from the single box on a file that it's separate, and that the library will allow us to avoid having problems of type of element. That's running two changes, was like that.